This 7-minute presentation highlights some of the most important aspects of perhaps the most complex and challenging piano composition within Beethoven's oeuvre, the Piano Sonata in B-flat, Opus 106. This work was composed between autumn 1817 and 1818. Perhaps influenced by the work's bombastic opening chords, musicians have come to know this as Beethoven's Hammerklavier Sonata. In fact, Hammerklavier is simply the German name for the piano. Its use on the title page of the sonata probably says more about Beethoven's German patriotism than about the work's musical style. The sonata's four-movement form, as well as its at least 45-minute length, are first hints of the serious nature of the work. The presence of a slow introduction or transition to the finale, as well as the foregrounding of fugal techniques in that final movement, are additional ready indicators of monumentality. Commentators from Sir Donald Tovey to Charles Rosen to Lewis Lockwood have remarked on the descending thirds and the conflict between B-flat and B natural throughout the sonata. The final movement represents perhaps Beethoven's most intense engagement with the fugal techniques that he had learned from poring over the music of J.S. Bach. If you have time to read but one scholarly analysis of the work, I'd suggest the analysis found in Charles Rosen's book called The Classical Style. You can check the index for Opus 106 and the pages of this analysis. Before going further, make sure you have a good score for the Hammerklavier Sonata and have found a good recording. There are many available on YouTube. Then you can dive into the first movement of the sonata, which starts with the measures shown on your screen. Note that the bar numbers of this composition can differ depending on how the first and second endings and the more fantasy-like passages are counted. This screen shows the G major theme that opens the second group or contrasting tonality of the exposition, all around measure 47. Here the use of descending third sequences first becomes pronounced. Note that the motion from the B-flat major tonic to the G major secondary key is also a minor third. The development opens with the bombastic chords of the movement's primary theme, and then a short fugato starts on E-flat. E-flat is another third down from the G major that closed the exposition. Although fugatos are not unusual for a development section, this fugato might be thought to foreshadow the sonata's masterful fugal finale. The recapitulation features the themes of the exposition, now mostly in B-flat, with excursions to G-flat major and B minor before the movement settles into the tonic for a strong tonic close. Beethoven's use of B minor in the recapitulation is one among several manifestations of the tension between B-flat and B natural in the sonata. Charles Rosen called the scherzo a parody of the primary theme of the first movement. One might hear this in the repeated sequences, here descending rather than ascending as they did in the first theme of the first movement. The dotted rhythms may also be heard to allude to the aggressive hammer chords of the first movement's primary theme. Like most scherzos, this one features a contrasting trio before it returns to the dotted rhythms of its first theme. The third movement, Adagio sostenuto, which Beethoven says should be played with passion and much feeling, is a slow sonata form. It has two opening themes, both in F-sharp minor. Beethoven chose to descend a third from F-sharp minor to D major for the second group of the exposition. It would have been more conventional to ascend a third to explore the relative major of F-sharp minor, which is A major. This is another of the sonata's descending third moments. After the development, the opening theme returns in a highly ornamented fashion in F-sharp minor for the recapitulation. At measure 113, the second theme of the first theme group appears in D major, after which follows a restatement of the first theme of the movement in F-sharp major. The second group appears in G major before the movement closes with reiterated F-sharp minor sonorities that almost seem to exist in a suspended state. This screen shows the end of the third movement and the beginning of the fugal finale of the Hammerklavier Sonata. Perhaps foreshadowing the Ninth Symphony, Beethoven tries out several diverse musical styles, from fantasy to, as we will see shortly, the hammer chords from the first movement, which are merged with a tightly wound passing fugato. While Beethoven was sketching the imitative polyphony of measures 5 through 9, he jotted down motives from J.S. Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. The fugato and the trills foreshadow the fugal subject to come. Measures 13 through 17 showcase Beethoven's development of the Hammer chord motive. The final measure on this screen sees the introduction of Beethoven's extremely long chromatic fugue subject. Here is the entire fugue subject along with the beginning of the first answer in measure 33. The red brackets indicate the subject and answer entries. Please pause the video and take a bit of time to study this subject. The Hammerklavier Sonata's fugal finale features statements and developments of the initial fugue subject separated by episodes. The remainder of this presentation highlights a few of these. On this screen, you'll see the subject presented in augmentation in E-flat minor with an answer in B-flat minor. After a brief episode, we next hear the subject in retrograde, with a new counter-subject above at measure 159 and following. 2 of the 3 entries are shown on the screen. Then, after the return of the original subject in D major, Beethoven inverts the subject starting in measure 215. Beethoven develops part of the inverted subject in stretto in the measures following the excerpt shown on the screen. After a brief second fugue, which Beethoven indicates should be performed una corta and always sweetly and lyrically, Beethoven brings back the original subject in stretto. Beethoven's crowning achievement in this sonata may be his combination of the original subject with the inverted subject in stretto in measures 301 and following. Beethoven concludes the movement with a rousing coda. As I hope you've realized you have studied this composition, the Hammerklavier Sonata is one of Beethoven's most complex, innovative, and intense works. It shows the composer bringing together the musical past and creating a musical future. Do listen to the sonata, score in hand, one more time before moving on to other late works of Beethoven.